Hi everybody. So in this demonstration here I'm going to show you what's referred to as a flame test. What I have here are 3 ionic compounds. Starting from the left hand side we have just table salt, so sodium chloride. In the middle here we have a chemical referred to as strontium nitrate. You notice the safety symbol here indicates that this is an oxidizing material. The third chemical that we're going to be using here is a chemical called cupric sulfate. That's somewhat of an older name here. Nowadays we would call it copper 2 sulfate. It has a notable blue color to it. So these ones here, being ionic compounds, mean they all exist as what's referred to as a crystal lattice. So crystal lattice here, let's say our sodium chloride, perhaps we have sodium as these green ions, there's one sodium to one chloride, but it's never just one pair of them. Because of their charges, this green sodium atom here is actually going to surround itself with as many blue chloride ions as it can, and the blue will surround itself with as many sodium, forming a nice repeating pattern called that lattice. What we're going to be doing in this flame test here is we're going to use the Bunsen burner. The heat from the Bunsen burner is actually enough to actually start ripping apart these ionic compounds. So it's actually going to start separating. I think I said the greens were sodium ions, the blues as chloride ions here. In the chemistry, we actually realize it's actually the metal ions that actually show color. And because these are 3 totally different metal ions, as they get atomized and vaporized into the air, we can actually identify which metal ion is in which compound based on the color that they actually produce. So let me just move this to the side here. We're going to strike our Bunsen burner. There we go. Because I am expecting for this flame test here, the flame to show a different color here, it might be nicer if I change this top part here, let in a little bit more oxygen to change the orange flame to a blue flame. If you're not even looking carefully here, you actually don't even realize that the Bunsen burner is on. I'm going to try to get it to a bright blue cone if I can. Sometimes you need to wiggle the bottom and control how tall the flame is. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to one by one, with a separate handle here, I'm going to actually put these compounds into the fire. So starting off with the first compound here, sodium chloride, so table salt. Again, this is going to be our default. This is going to be our control. As the fire is hot enough here to start separating the sodium ions from chloride ions here, we get a characteristic yellow color for sodium. So between these compounds here, the one that shows a sort of yellowy, maybe hinting at orange, that one there is indicating the sodium ion. Let's take a different holder here and test the middle compound. So this one here is our strontium nitrate here, slightly different ionic compound, slightly different ionic lattice. I'm going to grab a little bit of this here, and amidst the blue flame here, you actually see a nice hue to it, a nice reddish tone to it. In fact, fireworks are actually made out of burning different chemicals and different timings and patterns, and we can actually play around with the color of the flame itself. So again, same things are happening. So the fire is hot enough to rip apart the strontium ions from the nitrate, and as the strontium ions get ionized, it emits a nice blue color. Lastly here, we're going to take our compound. Our flame test here was used to identify one compound from the other. This one here is not so hard to separate from the other 2 that I have. He's already blue. But as I scoop up a little bit of this here, stick into the Bunsen burner here, we actually see yet another color here. I don't know if you can see it properly. We actually have a nice hint of a greenish color showing up. And that is the characteristic color of copper ions as they get atomized, not the sort of bronzish color of copper metal, but in the ion form here, it actually shows a nice greenish color. So that there is a simple flame test here to identify one ionic compound from another ionic compound. Again, when we're done with our Bunsen burner, easiest thing to do is just turn off the gas, and there we go. Thanks, guys.